Okay, hey Jimmy, how you doing?
I'm doing good, bro.
Doing good.
Doing
How
good.
is West Virginia?
It's a sunny day. It's
Sunny
fall.
day.
It's yeah,
Awesome. Eunice, how you
It's
doing,
still
bro?
sunny in October. That's interesting.
yeah, yeah. It's still sunny here. It still feels summer-ish.
Oh, summerish. Yeah. I mean, I live in the hottest part of the world. I live in Oman, in the Gulf. So
hmm
Maybe.
that's incredibly hot. It's hotter than I can put into words. So.
Oh, this weather would be cold to you then.
Yeah, exactly. That's winter to me.
That's right. All right, Jimmy.
yeah,
First of all, I'm so happy that you are here with us today, and
me
we
too.
are so excited to share some details about you, about your music, about everything. And
Okay,
me and Eunice, we're gonna ask you some questions, and we're gonna share everything you need. You know what I'm saying? So
sounds good.
let's come back to the beginning first, and I'm always wondering, what is your musical background? I mean, like, what most music you like before you get into metal?
Oh, okay. Well, it's interesting because that's kind of kind of part of what it is.
You're right,
you know.
correct.
Yeah, I was lucky. I was raised by two parents who listened to a lot of hard rock and heavy metal and blues and classical music. So, as a kid growing up, some of my earliest memories from the latter part of the 70s when I was a little boy, um, hearing Kiss, Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, all that stuff is what was constantly being
Right,
played around me when I was a kid. And as I got older, the 80s happened. And, my dad was always bringing albums in. Like in 1980, I remember I had started kindergarten and my dad got a copy of Judas Priest Unleashed in the East live in Japan. And I remember him playing that record and me looking at that album cover and just going, wow, I want to do that. It
oh
was
yeah,
really cool.
no doubt.
Yeah, and that stuck with me. And hearing Ozzy Osbourne, Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman, Bark at the Moon. As a kid, every time Ozzy put out a new record, my dad had it. And same with Judas Priest and AC/DC, and and then eventually Iron Maiden. You know,
Right,
that right at that point, being a 9-year-old kid and seeing the world premiere of Ace's High, that was it for me right there.
right,
you know,
right.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
very
then all
interesting.
the
So yeah,
classical music too.
before you start your career as a guitar, in playing guitar, so you had like a good listen to this music, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And the other thing I thought was cool was the fact that classical music and heavy metal music were similar in certain ways, you know,
Right,
especially on the melodic structure and everything.
correct.
And I like that nowadays there's that meme that says all heavy metal is classical music before electricity,
Right.
or vice versa. You know,
Yeah,
it was classical
exactly.
music is heavy metal before electricity. Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I was hearing all that stuff and just being in awe of what it all is, and that's what I always wanted to be a part of. Was music and specifically, hard rock and heavy metal. you
That's
know,
right. Yeah, because
yeah,
you remember that we met like 14 years ago, and
yeah.
yep, it was like 2010. I mean, like, yeah,
hmm
something like this. And when I see you, or maybe when I see your actual news or like your music, so I feel like you are more in the power metal when you listen to this music. I mean, like,
hmm
to listen to the music, like Blind Guardian, Master Plane, Iron Saver.
hmm
So you are in. So what do you think about the power metal you listen to?
Oh, I love those bands. I'm back to the band. I'm wearing his T-shirt for Stradivarius is one of my absolute favorites. And Blind Guardian, Primal Fear, Hammerfall, Rhapsody. I mean, that's a big list. Iron Savior, Gravedigger. It's
Right.
all great stuff. I got all into all those bands back in the '90s. Back, I used to be a radio DJ in the '90s for
Cool.
WMUL 1 FM at Marshall University, and I did that for 5 years, from 1993 till 1998. And in that time period, I got to see and hear every new metal band of all the genres that were happening at the time. So I got to see all the new black metal that was coming out, and then the power metal that was coming out, and all the deathcore, all the stuff that was, itching its way into the 2000s. I got to see all those bands releasing albums. There was like only a couple record companies at the time that were doing it. We had Metal Blade, Century Media, Nuclear Blast, and Relapse. And then you had, the German labels that were trying to get stuff over here and having
I think,
trouble.
yeah,
So
I know
yeah,
exactly what you mean. Yep, yep. Yeah. So,
yeah, but
yeah.
I
So,
love it.
Jimmy, when you start playing your music, so, uh, did you play like most of the
Yeah.
bands like do this, or you just like so quick playing your own music?
Well, the way it started was um, I became a bass player when I was 15, and I really looked up to Steve Harris, Cliff Burton, and Geezer Butler. And so I was learning Maiden, Sabbath, Metallica, and then Slayer, and Obituary, and Venom, and Merciful Fate, and King Diamond, and Judas Priest, and Candlemass. I was learning all that stuff, and then something clicked in me one day when I was around 16. Um, 16 going on to 17. I I had this epiphany. It was like, hey, look at, you know, inside the Iron Maiden albums and look at who wrote the songs. And most of the time, it's the bass player
Right.
that was writing the songs. So I thought, well, that's cool. And then Candlemass was the same way. Leif Elming of Candlemass wrote every damn song, everything. And I thought, okay, there's something here. The bass players are writing songs. So that means I better learn how to play the guitar. So I started, learning, a lot of Merciful Fate, a lot of Judas Priest, Candlemass, Metallica, Iron Maiden, Sabbath in the beginning. And then in 1994, I got my first electric, it was a BC Rich Warlock, which I still own. It's just not playable anymore. But I got into doing, you know, the soloing aspect because I started watching Yngwie Malmsteen videos that a friend of mine had. My friend Andy Hott, who sings for the band Zero King, he brings over this video, this VHS. It was Yngwie Malmsteen live in Tokyo in 1985, and I watched that, and that was it. I was like, I want to do that, with all my other influences pulled in.
Right.
And I'd never wanted to be an Yngwie Malmsteen player or anything like that. I do love Yngwie. I have a tremendous respect for the guy. And, I own a shitload of his music and, all that stuff, and I've seen him live. But I didn't want to be a complete carbon copy of who he is. It's I did notice that over the years that, like, in the early days of me posting stuff on YouTube, I first started doing that back in like 2000, 2007. I would get the Yngwie comparison,
Hmm.
and people would be like, well, you're not using you're not playing neoclassical the way it should be played. It should be played with the Yngwie Malmsteen signature series Strat through a Marshall 50-watt head, and a DoD overdrive. And I'm like, that's not me. Yeah.
That's right.
It's like, it's not me. But that's the thing. It's like over the years I've accumulated so many influences, and then when I started to go back to your original question, I did start writing material when I was probably like actual riffs that I started laying down on cassette tapes. So I was around 17. I started to just write little things, and it just went from there.
Yeah. Correct. Correct.
I have a question, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
I have
Go
a
ahead.
question. Yeah, since you're talking about your early steps in the music world and the days when you
Yeah.
first picked up guitar and decided to do this. So, are you largely self-taught, or did someone in particular teach you the first basics of the guitar back when you were like 16 or 17?
I'm basically self-taught for the most part. I mean, with the exception of when I had started playing bass. A guy named Jim Rumbaugh is a friend of the family. He played bass, and my mom basically talked to him and said, "Hey, will you teach Jimmy how to play?" And he showed me a major scale and a minor scale, and said, "Just do these and do." And I was like, "But that's cool, but can we learn this? And I remember he told my mom just after the first time, she goes, he's already at like level 3. And
Oh,
she's like, what do you mean? She's like, he's past the basic part. He wants to go straight into composition. And so I was throwing songs like To Tame a Land and The Trooper and stuff off of the Masters Reality album by Black Sabbath at this guy going, I want to learn these. And he couldn't believe it. That's where I wanted to start. Because those are
Good.
rather notey, those are notey things. So yeah, that's the closest thing I had. And then obviously a little later on, I did pick up instructional videos from Yngwie and George Lynch and stuff because I wanted to see how are they doing that. That's
Yeah.
really about it. Other than that, I've always played by ear. I still do to this day.
Right. We still learn by each passing day.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely great.
I learned it.
Yeah, but because for me, the new classic music or to play, you need to have like skills, and you do. Like I told you, like past days, it's not easy to play this music because Jimmy, you had uh, like your unique style. You know what I'm saying? So
Thanks.
yeah, unique style because I do listen to new classic, look at Torelli, Joe Stamps, other stuff like this, but it's something like you mix between music is swinging between the heavy metal, power metal, and new style, the new classic Jimi Mitchell. You know what I'm saying? So it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's something like it's great. It's great. So it's not easy
Thanks.
for me to achieve this point.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, the way
Yeah,
I
that's
play,
right. Because
it's
yeah, go ahead.
natural. Go ahead, you're good. I was gonna say it's just all natural. That what I'm doing, nothing's ever forced.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Well, when I started listening to your stuff, Jimmy, the first thing that came
Mhm.
to my mind, honestly, I said to myself, this guy's music is less popular than it should be. That's what I thought at first.
I
Yeah,
do
I
hear
mean,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, I've been listening to metal for years over years, and honestly, I've never known or heard of Jimi Mitchell until my friend Muhammad recommended your music to me, and I said, "Where has this guy been hiding my entire life?" So, my question is,
Over here.
and then, yeah, I mean, the music was really good. I mean, but the question is, I did a little research and I found that you released your music independently. You have never signed with
Mhm.
any record labels whatsoever.
Mhm.
Don't you think that
Correct.
releasing your music via a record label would help it gain the recognition it deserves?
Oh,
Don't you think
absolutely.
so? I mean,
Yeah.
why have you never thought of that?
Actually, I have. I mean, in the past, I did actually reach out to record companies. And matter of fact, when I did my very first instrumental, demo LP, I reached out to a couple record companies just to see if anybody would bite. And I actually got, some pretty good feedback. I got feedback from Metal Blade, Nuclear Blast over in Germany, and at the time, the defunct record Leviathan Records out of Atlanta, that was ran by David Chastain. And Dave wrote me personally. He said, "Listen, man," he's like, you know, "the music you're doing is really good." He goes, "And if I still had my label, I'd sign you." And I was like, "Damn it!" I
He's
was like,
right.
"Damn
He's
it!"
right
'Cause
about that.
yeah, because at the time, Rob Johnson and Joe Stump and a couple other dudes were on that record label, and that label was a really good, label to get with if you played instrumental metal, because he would make sure that the artist got really good publishing rights over in Japan. Rob Johnson has a bunch of his music being used in commercials in Japan, and he makes enough from that he doesn't have to do anything else. And I'm thinking, God, that'd be great to do that. But no,
Right.
actually, to go back on the original question, um, I do plan on sending a couple labels some material here before too long that I haven't released yet, just because I know the whole game of, okay, when you release something on Spotify, record companies want nothing to do with you. But if you withhold something and then go, hey, I've got this and I've got many more. Can we work out something? Because like I have been approached by one other label, and they basically have said that they would only be able to give me a distribution deal. And I'm like, well, that's nice, but I really want to, help on getting a full lineup to be able to play, the stuff. And I really want to play the, summer festival circuit over in Europe. And I would like to go to South America and go to places where people have been following me for a while and be able to play with all these other artists and present it. And, with a full production, that's what I'd really like to do, is find a record company that will actually, back me in that sense of, okay, we'll distribute your record, we'll put a couple of videos out for the singles, and we'll advertise your stuff, all the things that a record company's supposed to do. So, yeah. And yeah, so that's one of the things that I'm definitely trying to find is, a label that, would be good to do business with, because that's really at the end of the day what you're doing is you're doing a business contract with a big company. So I hope that somebody can, hear what I'm doing and go, oh, let's invest in this and see how it works out. In the same way that, things like Avantasia and stuff, because that's kind of what I want to do in a live sense, is that same kind of thing where you have multiple vocalists who come out and sing the songs, and even sometimes sing them together. And I would have to have 3 guitar players, myself and then 2 others. I'd need a keyboard player, and I'd need a kick-ass drummer, and a cool stage production would be great. If we're talking about what I'm really shooting for, that's it. I want to be able to do that, but I'd also love to be able to play, in a club setting too, where it's, very intimate. I love playing in clubs. It's fun to have that moment where you're standing on the edge of the stage and the fan is right there too. And that's a great feeling. Yeah, it's great. It's the heavy metal family thing.
Yeah, because Yunus, he used to play a band which is like one of my best band in our country back in Tunisia. It's like one
You say so.
they play thrash metal like I like, so he knows exactly what he's talking about. So yeah,
That's
so
awesome.
for the label, so you want like distribution one, or like some company will produce your music, Jimmy?
I would prefer that a company allow me to pretty much produce what I was going to do, because I've already got the ideas in my head. I mean, I don't have an issue with working with a producer. I think it would be fun, but it would have to be the right person. It'd have to be somebody that is into heavy metal music,
Right.
and also hears my stuff and goes, oh, this is pretty cool, and can hear me play something and then maybe go, hey, what if you play that riff in halftime? I like that kind of thing, so I wouldn't be opposed to working with a producer at all. I think it'd be fun.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talking
Can I
about
go ahead with another question?
Sure, good.
Okay, great. So, well, I noticed that, I was discovering or digging your discography and listening to your stuff, and I noticed something which I personally find a little bit strange.
Mm-hmm.
At some point in your career, you decided to split your music into 2 names. So there is
Mm-hmm.
Jimi Mitchell, and there is Jimi Mitchell's Dark Fantasy.
Yes.
Okay? I listened to the Dark Fantasy album, the Majestic Nightmares album. It's
Oh, okay.
great, it's amazing, but it's Jimi Mitchell. I mean, it's still neoclassical heavy power. So I expected to find something new there. So why did he decide to change the name? So what was the reason for that?
Oh, that was just to basically separate, just solo guitar instrumental music from stuff that would have singing. That was really it. It was like, yeah, eventually, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I would love to get to the point where my name is no longer on there, where it's just Dark Fantasy instead of Jimi Mitchell's Dark Fantasy.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only reason I kept using my name was because people already knew there were people who knew who I was. So I was like, fuck it, I'll just keep the name. I'll keep my name in there. And, it's like, it's not meant to be like Yngwie Malmsteen's Rising Force, Richie Blackmore's Rainbow. It's not meant to be like that necessarily, but at the same time, I also saw that Tobias Sammet, Tobias Sammet's Avantasia. And I'm like, all right, screw it. It's a good marketing tool. Why
Yeah,
not? So that's
it's a cool name. It's a cool name. I like the name Dark Fantasy. I mean, you can just call it Dark Fantasy. Okay, it's a
Mhm.
great name. It's attractive. I mean, and it suits the atmosphere of the music you're playing.
Thanks. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah,
The music,
great.
I reflect a lot of what I see in the world into the music I'm doing. You know, it's like what I feel, I just bang it out. Yeah.
That's what music is basically about. It's about banging out what you feel.
Yeah,
Yeah,
completely.
exactly.
You know, and with this type of music, you know, with heavy metal, you can go in a lot of different directions.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's one of the
Mhm.
attractive things about heavy metal to me is that, you know, you've got all these different genres, but they all share the same thing in common is that it's metal. You know, it doesn't matter whether you've got somebody that's, you know, singing like Bruce Dickinson or Rob Halford, or if you've got somebody like John Tardy or Shagrith or, you know, or Corey Taylor, you know, whoever is singing, doing vocals for that, whatever type of metal that is, it's still metal. You know, it's just a different
Yeah.
taste. That's all. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that aspect of heavy metal. You know, there's so much to choose from, and it speaks to everybody on, you know, on a very deep level. You know.
Yeah, especially for the new generation now. You
Hmm.
know, some people like talk about like true metal, false metal, but it's metal by the end, you know. So it's still the same. Okay, so I
Yeah.
feel like you get like learning a lot of valuable things uh, during all these years. So what are these valuable things you have learned all these years, Jimmy, playing the music?
What are some what are some of the things I've learned through my music? Is that
Uh-huh.
what you're asking?
Yep.
Well, I've learned um, over the years, because like you'll notice if you listen to my older material that I was doing and you listen to the stuff I'm doing now, I let the music breathe a lot more now. You know, more about, you know, have a really strong riff that makes you go, yeah, you know, and you know, a singer that can soar over that, and then when it comes to the guitar solo, go all out. You know, like play play really good. You know, don't just play fast for the sake of playing fast. Play stuff that's very melodic, but at the same time has a lot of flash. You know, and that is something that I I used to just look at it as, okay, I'm going to write a composition. I don't care if it's 3 minutes or 7 to 10 minutes, as long as it's crazy.
Right. Yeah.
You know? And the stuff I'm doing now, you know, I hold back more and I think more along the lines of what would Iron Maiden do, what would Stradivarius do, what would Metallica do. I start thinking of those kinds of things in the production aspect after I've created an idea. And then I go, okay, well, this song could be a little shorter. You know, there is a song that I'm working on now, and it's called "Lessons from the Divine," and it's this. Or no, not "Lessons from." That's an instrumental. "Live to Fight Another Day." That's the one I'm actually working on for vocal, and it's a straight up, full on, fast power metal song. And when I originally did the idea, I wrote the idea about a year ago, and then, you know, just let it sit for a while, and I would listen to it and go, it needs something, you know. And then one day, not too long ago, I went back and realized what it needed. It needed to be shorter because it was like 5 minutes and 40 seconds long, and I'm like, that's too long for this way this song is flowing. It's got that, you know, fast Stradivarius Blind Guardian type vibe,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, okay, then just cut the parts out that don't need to be there and get straight to the point. And I didn't. That's one thing that I've learned is how to make something be mega cool and only be 4 minutes instead of seven. You know,
Right.
that's a big one.
Yeah, yeah. 4 minutes it can be like kicking ass more than 7, 8, 10 minutes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
it can be. It
yeah.
can hit the spot. Yep. Excuse me. So what? Yeah, like Eunice said. So I was digging too. I was like listening to your music these days. I was like focusing on it so often. And Jimmy, you have only 4 albums and 4 singles. Okay.
Hmm.
For me as a fan, is not enough. I'm still hungry.
Hmm.
You know. Yeah, yeah,
Good.
still happening for real. And and I want to more like to know more details about these releases, like how you did like coming with this idea for each albums and singles. And like I said, it's not enough. We need more from you.
Oh, there's definitely going to be a lot more
Yeah.
because I've got I literally have 2.5 years worth of material sitting on this hard drive behind me.
Oh,
And, you know, between 2022 and 2024, well, no, 20, all of 2022 and all of 2023, I ended up writing close to 40 songs. And
Wow.
the thing is, it was all the result of me giving up drinking alcohol, and changing my
Oh,
life and, becoming more spiritual and everything. And then all of a sudden this floodgate of creativity opened up, and it just wouldn't stop. It was like a rushing river. So all these riffs and all these passages were coming out of me, like, I mean, out of thin air. And like I said, there were 40 complete songs. Now, not all of them have names. Some of them, it's just like, okay, this is a song. Here's a chorus section. Here's a verse section. Don't know what it's going to be about yet. I've got a lot of those. And then I've got ideas where I would come up with like a couple of riffs. So there's like half songs. So there's like 7 or 8 of those laying around too, where it's just like, okay, there's something that started. I'll probably take that and use that little riff and something over here. Because that's another thing I do too, is like some of the ideas I've come up with, I go, well, this idea is too similar to this idea. What if I change the key and put a totally different beat to it?
well,
And that works too. And it's really cool because then sometimes you end up coming up with something, really off the cuff that works well with another set of riffs. And then you have a brand new song. And in that term, what I do think of is like what Bruce Dickinson, when Iron Maiden was making the album Power Slave, Bruce Dickinson approached Steve Harris with some ideas, and Steve listened to them, and there was like 3 different songs. And Steve came back to him and goes, "Hey, if you take this riff from this song, and this riff from this song, and this riff from this song, and you put it all together, you've got one great song." And that great song ended up being the song Power Slave. And it's like, so I think in terms like that, where it's like, what if I did that? And I started researching some of my own stuff and, going, okay, if I analyze this, this is similar to this over here. So bring those two and put
right.
them
It's like
together.
puzzles,
It's
like
the
you
same
know.
tempo. Yeah, it's the same tempo. It's the same key. And I'm like, okay, it can work. So that's another method I use in songwriting.
great.
So yeah, there's
How
loads more. Uh, it's just there's been a big lack of money in being able to put out a physical product and stuff, which is another reason I'm going to be approaching record companies, is because, I'm 49 years old. What money I do have, has to go to my living.
Oh yeah.
My wife and I,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
we have to
understandable.
live. So,
Yeah.
and I think that's the reason why so many artists are doing singles. And some guys do get lucky enough to, be able to do like a GoFundMe or something in order to, release an EP or something, which is cool. That's great that they can do it, but even those bands will tell you it was really fucking hard to get the money to do
Right.
it. Yeah, and they're still eating, a ramen noodle diet, ramen noodles and hot dogs. You know,
So how
yeah.
how do you get the inspiration to find the titles of the songs?
Oh, well, those vary from song to song. Um, the titles come about out of thin air sometimes. Sometimes, like, I'll have a song idea with a title in mind, and it's like, okay, like I have a song called "The White Knight" that I'm still working on the lyrics for, and "The White Knight" is going to be about Ahsoka Tano from the Star Wars Rebels, Clone Wars, and obviously the Ahsoka
Hmm.
series. Um, I think she's a great character, and she's really strong, and there's a really rich story that she has, and I'm like, that's a great character to write about in metal that hasn't been done yet. So I've got that one, and I've got one called "A Letter to the Unknown," and that's actually going to be my next single. And the funny thing is, the way the title had come about was the song is loosely based off of something that really happened to me in my life, where um, I was talking with my wife one night, and I said, "So who's the one that got away? For you when you were younger? Because couples talk about that. We've been watching some silly show, and there was this whole thing of she's the one that got away, and I looked at my wife and go, so who was the one that got away for you, and there was some dude she knew back when she was like 13. And then for me, it was a girl that I went to college with. And um, I don't know, all of a sudden something clicked. It was like, wait a minute, you had this crush on this girl. She was unattainable because she was your friend. And you two walked very different paths. Okay, here's everything setting up for a story, for a song. And I thought to myself, like, well, wait a minute. If I take the season of the year, which is autumn, fall, which is when I had that moment in my young life, and I use that as the background setting for the atmosphere of the song, and even musically created in the background, by having wind and thunder and all those types of things that you would think of for autumn. And that's a letter to the unknown. The unknown part, I did that because even though I know who the person is, I don't want anybody to really know. So it's a letter to the unknown, because it's supposed to be a story about a guy who's writing this letter, telling this woman many years later that he had, deep, tremendous feelings for her, and he never dated, and that was the whole idea of the story. So a lot of times, to answer your original question, a title will come about based off of the idea of what the story is going to be about. That's pretty much what I do, a lot of times. Sometimes it's thought-provoking, and sometimes it's just blunt. Like, I don't try to be anything. I just write ideas, and sometimes the ideas, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yes.
It's one of the beautiful things about creating music is that you can do whatever you want with it.
Right. You're free. You're free. Yep.
Yeah,
You are
it's
totally free.
freedom, it really is.
Yep.
Yeah, writing music is totally free, because it allows you to be connected to a higher self.
High level
It
of
really
something.
does. Yeah. And I love the fact that it doesn't matter whether you're composing the music or if you're just a listener, you're a fan of the music. Everybody's feeling that same thing, that same positive force that
Yeah.
music, does what it does to all of us. And that's one thing that I think is very important, especially in this day and age with the amount of violence and distrust and just all the craziness that's happening
Right.
in the world right now.
Exactly.
Having heavy metal and having a heavy metal family of fans, friends is a very important thing.
Of course.
Yeah, having brotherhood, having people you can count on, having people you can talk to and laugh with, or hey dude, have you seen this new
Exactly.
movie, or have you heard this new album? It's fucking awesome.
Yep. No talk about
Yeah.
that. Yep.
Well, speaking of freedom, yeah, go ahead, Muhammad. You had a question. I interrupted you. Sorry.
It's
Go
your
ahead.
turn. It's okay. It's okay. I'm
Okay, great.
enjoying
Thank you. So, speaking of freedom, obviously, so Jimi Mitchell is basically a solo project. Well, you had a few guest members here and there, but it's still a solo project. So, do you
Yes.
think that you would have enjoyed the same amount of freedom and creativity if you were in a band?
Yeah. Yeah,
Same.
absolutely. I think I would have. Yeah, I think because I would have made a point to get into a band where I could have had creative freedom to write ideas and still be able to work with people. And that's always been a very important thing, is being able to write with other people. Actually, the last single I put out was originally called Killer. It's funny, it was originally called Killer Be Killed, and then we changed the name to the Hell's in His Eyes because of the story. The lyrics were actually written by Nick, who did the vocal. That was a really, really cool idea.
Congratulations for this new single, by the way.
Oh, thanks, dude. Thanks. Yeah, that was a fucking great, collab there, because like I had the song idea and I had the vocal melodies, but I couldn't get the words together. And one day a while back, my friend Ralf Scheepers from Primal had reached out to me. He's like, "Hey Jimmy," he's like, I've got this student that you should meet. He's really cool. His name's Nick." And he's like, "He's a really good singer. He's a really cool dude. I think you two would work well." I'm like, "Okay, cool, thanks." It's one thing I love about Ralf. Ralf Scheepers will always like tap me on the shoulder and be like, "Hey Jim, you got to meet this dude. He's fucking great, you know. And I'm like, oh, cool, thanks. So like, you know, he sends Nick my way. We started talking. I said, so here's the idea, dude. I said, the vocal melody's there on guitar, so I can send you a mix with that, and then send you a mix without it. So that way you can, if you want to use those melodies, go for it. And if you want to alter them, that's okay too, you know, for whatever was going to work for the way the words will flow.
Mm-hmm.
And so I gave him creative freedom. I said, he's like, what do you want it to be about? I said, well, I said, it's got kind of a warrior vibe. It's got that, some kind of, you know, conflict, some type of struggle is definitely, you know, in the music. At least that's the dramatic feel the music has without any words. And he's like, okay, cool. Give me about a week and I'll have something. And it wasn't a day or two later, he messages me and goes, hey, dude, what do you think of this? He sends me this rough, raw demo he does. I was like, it's fucking great. Go with it, you know? And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, he just wrote this story about a biker warlord kind of guy, you know, kind of like something you would hear on a Manowar record or
Right.
an early Saxon record, you know, those types of lyrics. I was like, that's pretty cool. I've always wanted to do something like that because I am a fan of Manowar
Some
and
master
Saxon.
words.
Yeah, there's some good shit there. So I was like, let's do it. And that was a really good collab. You know, it's one of them I'm really happy about, you know, that I was able to do. And I've been doing some with my brother Aaron. You know, we're working on a few tunes, and you know, they'll be done when they're done. It takes him a little longer than it does for me to do something. I can come up with an idea pretty quick and be like, you know, I can message him and go, hey, dude, I'm working on an idea. And then 5 hours later, I'll have the whole damn thing, you know, with all the guitars and all the drums and a solo and keyboards, and be like, here, what do you think? Do you want to use this? And it'd be like, dude, how do you come up with shit so fast? And I'm like,
Yep. That's right.
it just happens. Because it's interesting because like when you're writing a song, you hit a point where, okay, you got your opening riff, and then you've got, you know, your verse riff,
Mm-hmm.
and then you got your pre-chorus, and then you got your chorus, and then you got your guitar solo. And then once you've gotten that far into the song, you're like, okay, so which riff over here what riffs do we repeat, or do we repeat them at all? You know, and that's really it. You know, it's like, because you just have to figure out, okay, how many times do you want to play that riff or that riff, you know, and make it what it is. You know,
Yeah. So
it's fun.
playing by yourself, like for your own project, it's might make you more free, and
Mhm.
without making struggling with bands or something. Because I feel some guitar player, when they start playing with bands, I feel like they get chained. You know what I'm saying? So they are not like, it's
Mhm.
chained, but it's still not free. I should be, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think I think all of us who play always think about what it would be like to be in some band that we've grown up, you know, listening to and following. And in the past, I've auditioned. I've sent auditions for. I actually sent one to Sabaton once, and they were actually really cool. They wrote me back and were like, "Hey, we really loved what you're doing, but we've already got a replacement guitar player. But we do appreciate you sending this stuff." And they're like, "Dude, never stop." And then they started following me on social media, which I thought that was cool. It was like, okay, they found me and now they're following me. So, but and I sent one to Iced Earth actually. I let's see, 2 different times.
Hmm.
You know, I offered to play for them 2 different times. One time I didn't hear shit. And the other time, you know, I didn't hear shit. You know, yeah, it was like both times I didn't hear back from you know the Iced Earth camp, but that's okay.
Right.
Um, Especially after all the shit that went down with that band, which is really a
Exactly. Yeah.
shame.
It's so
You
sad.
know,
It's so sad.
yeah, because I'll say this: John Schaefer was a big influence on the way I play rhythm guitar. You know, and you know, in the '90s, there was that really weird period where the metal bands that were playing metal were playing it as true to the heart as possible, and they were on independent labels playing
Hmm.
in the little bars. You know, and dude, John always brought it, you know, like that energy and that aggression and the attack. He was like the perfect combination of James Hetfield, Scott Ian, and Steve Harris wrapped into one in one fist.
Exactly.
You know, just that
Exactly.
those.
Yep.
I mean, because you can hear it's like, dude, Steve Harris would be doing that on bass, but you're doing it on guitar. That's fucking awesome.
Right.
You
I
know?
know that. Yep.
So yeah, that was a big influence on me, and so yeah, I at one time wanted to be able to play with him, but then I also realized later on that it was probably a good idea it didn't happen.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
you know,
Yep.
especially when looking at everything that's taken place, you know, in the media with his career. It's like, dude, I'm so sorry. you know, but who knows?
Yep.
I may, as end up finding another band to audition for in the future. Who knows? Because I would totally do it. I mean, there are certain bands like Primal Fear. They had just lost Tom and
Mm-hmm.
Alex, and I did message Matt and said, hey, I said, if you need me, just let me know. Just let me know what to learn. If you and he'd let me. He said thank you. He said, but we've already got somebody. And I was like, that's cool, man. Sweet. And said, well, tell him. I said, welcome to the Primal Fear family. you
Right.
know, they're those are hardworking dudes who are really cool. And so it just hasn't happened. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. So do you currently have any plans of creating a permanent lineup, like
Yeah.
with a permanent drummer, permanent bassist, permanent vocalist, not just guest members?
hmm
Do you have
Yeah.
this idea right now?
Yeah. I've actually been trying to do that here locally. Haven't had a whole lot of luck, but I've
Mm.
also reaching out. Like, okay, the bass player that's been on almost everything I've done that's released this year is my friend Phil Willis, who actually used to live here in this region in the Huntington area. Back in the day, he played in a death metal band called Sacrification, and even further back, he was in a band called Ampersand. And, I mean, it's interesting. He was a really strong heavy metal bass player.
Mm-hmm.
He was into all the really great players, Steve Harris and Geddy Lee and Cliff Burton, and just list goes on and on. A lot of thrash and death metal in his background, and he's actually still playing with a death metal band down in Florida. Plays for Serpents Rising, and we'd been in touch, and he's like, hey man, if you ever want to jam, just let me know. I'm like, well, actually, would you want to would you be interested in playing on a lot of the stuff that I'm getting ready to do? And he's like, yeah man, just send me the stuff. And so that's what I've been doing. So Phil basically is the full-time bass player for what I do, so I've got at least one.
At least one,
Yeah,
yeah.
At least one. Yep.
yeah,
So
I've got one.
two more to
And
go.
once in a while, I do get to work with Jan. I get to work with Jan Eckert sometimes from Iron Savior, the bass player that played with Master Plan as well. Um, Jan's a good dude. He's actually the bass player that played on one of the singles that's about to come out called "Tale of a Fallen Man." It's uh, That's going to be a cool one because it's got two singers. It's got Sebastian Lehman on vocals, and it's got Claudia Pearl on vocals as well. So you
Interesting.
get the call response male female duo
Ah,
thing
great.
going on, and all while this 150 BPM power metal is playing the whole time. Yeah.
I love that. I
Mhm.
love the female male approach to vocals. I love that.
Yeah,
Definitely looking forward to hear it.
thanks, man.
Please
I
don't
can't
take
wait.
too long making it, please.
Well, the good thing is I've already sent the song to my buddy Matthew Mills to have it mastered, and told me that this weekend he was mastering the track, and I also sent him the next single, the track "A Letter to the Unknown." I sent him that last night as well because I got the final mix done. That's gonna be a cool one because where most people hear my stuff and they hear the power metal side,
Yes.
and the song "Letter to the Unknown" is the opposite of that. It showcases the gothy side of things that I really enjoy. Like, I love Typo Negative, and that type of stuff. That doomy, gloomy, heavy, slow.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but very melodic music. Was a big influence on me from the '90s, and so that's what that song is. It's maybe nodding to that. Nodding to that genre. And I like to nod to genres sometimes, sometimes very blatantly, and that one I do, because the dude that I got to sing it um, sounds a lot like Peter Steele, so I was like, cool. It's got that Typo Negative, Sisters of Mercy, kind of thing going on in there, and it's going to be a nice little change,
Yep.
to have that
Absolutely.
one. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
yeah.
So Jimmy, do you have any other future coming project with some uh, musicians like you did with Joe Stamps and Ralf from Primal? Do you have some name on list?
I've got people that I definitely want to work with, and it's just a matter of getting the right tunes. There is a song Joe Stump is going to be on that we were working on like around the time of the pandemic, and I never did get the damn thing released. And I'm kind of glad I didn't, because I went back and listened to it, and I told him, I said, dude, this song needs fixed. Like, it seriously needs to be redone completely, maybe even in a different key. And he's like, cool. And actually, Joe and I got to reconnect a little bit back in April, I think. I went and saw Alcatraz with Girls School and Lillian Axe, and you know, Joe, you know, Joe and I got to hang out a little bit, and we were outside talking. And I said, yeah, I said, I want to redo it. He said, cool. He said, definitely send it to me when you get it. He goes, and we'll get this, the track kicking. He's like, I'll do a totally new solo and all that. And I'm like, okay, cool. So that's another track that I've been like, from time to time, I'll go and I'll be like, okay, this part needs to be a little faster, a little slower, a little longer. You know. So yeah, he's gonna be on one. As far as singers, I am trying like crazy to find someone that can help me get in touch with Timo Catapelto from Stradivarius. It's like I would love to do one song with that guy just once.
Yeah.
I would love to get him. Yeah, for sure. I'm a huge fan of his voice. And another one I would love to work with at some point. I'd love to work, with Hansi Kirsch from Blind Guardian. I would love. Those are some singers I would love to work with at least one time. At some point, I have reached out to Chris Bodenthal in the past from Gravedigger, and he's given me a price and everything. I'm like, all right, cool. He said I'll be in touch when I have something a bit more concrete. So, who knows?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Get
For
time.
sure. For sure.
And I do, and of course I've got the people I've been working with. I'm going to definitely be doing more songs with Nick Seymour and more with Sebastian Lehman. Claudia, if she can get time, I'm definitely going to end up doing another one with her at some point. And I know Chris and I have talked about doing some stuff, because Chris has got a really diverse voice where he can be all gothy 1 second, and be all Peter Steele, and then the next minute he can be all Dio, so it's really cool. So he's got a lot there. But yeah, I mean, those are the singers so far that I'm either working with or I'm trying to get in touch with.
Right.
So we'll see what happens.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's worthy. It's worthy at least. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Jimmy, I have I'm always asking this question. So how would you describe yourself as a guitar player?
How would I describe myself as a guitar player? Well, when people typically ask me that question, I say that I play neoclassical melodic heavy metal. That's what I tell them. I'm a melodic metal player, really. I'm a mixture of things. I'm a songwriter. I'm a shredder. I'm a bard.
I love this part of Shredder. I love this part.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like I can do all those things, but I try to find the most creative ways to do them now. In my older age, it's something that I've made a point to do. Is like, there's only so many scales and so many chords that you can play, and even if you tune the guitars down, there are the following shapes. Okay, there's E, or the following keys: E, A, D, B, and F sharp. Those are like the main keys most people play it, and occasionally G. But yeah, and so like those keys are the key signatures that are the main things that are used in hard rock and metal. And even when you tune the guitars down, the shape, the same place where you were playing that E or that A or whatever, it's still the same. You're still playing the same chord. You're just playing them, it's a different, frequency, it's a different tuning, it's a different pitch, but you're still doing the same thing.
Right.
I pointed that out to somebody recently. I said, dude, okay, you take any Okay, you take any riff by Halloween from the
Mhm.
Keepers of the Seven Keys 1 and 2 records, or even from Walls of Jericho. You take those riffs that are played in E standard at the time, and you tune them down to a low C, and give them modern production and a growly voice, and you've got Arch Enemy.
Right.
You know,
Or
it's
channel.
stuff like
Yeah.
that. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, the musical comparison is the same. It's like it's the same awesome melodic metal. It's just tuned to a lower pitch. That's all it is. You
Yeah,
know, and
exactly.
I've discovered that a lot. That's one thing that gets me, like when people start fighting about heavy metal and what's really good and what sucks. You know, there are people that I know who only listen to certain genres, you know, and they're not going to give anything else a chance, no matter what you tell them about, you know,
Nothing.
the artist. They're just not going to give it a
Mm-mm.
chance.
Especially black metal fans. They are, yeah, they basically listen to black metal and all its derivatives, you know. So no power metal, no heavy metal. It's they find it too soft to their ears. I know, but
Mhm.
well, they're
Yeah,
not
there's some.
open to new.
Yeah, there are some that are like that, and it just gets me because, like, I know that, like, the guys from the black metal bands, especially Jimmy Borgir and Emperor, those two specific Norwegian bands are influenced by, you know, Accept and Depeche Mode
Right.
and Iron Maiden and
Mm-hmm.
Black Sabbath, you
Mhm.
know, and Christian Death, and, you know, I mean, there's a fuckload of influences that are really melodic. So that's what gets me about
Yeah, yes, yes.
some of the fandom that it does exist around the world, is that occasionally, yeah, you do run into the, you know, true or else, you know, type individuals, and if that's the way they want to be, then hey, whatever. You know,
Yep.
not me. I listen to all kinds of shit. I love it. You know,
Yep. Yep.
it's one of the important things about metal. You know,
Exactly.
like I said before, it's metal's like a buffet. You
Yeah.
know,
You have to pick
like,
what you want.
yeah, there's all kinds there. You know, it's
Exactly.
like you pick to choose from.
Whether it's hot
And
or
I think it's
Yeah.
and one
whether
thing I
it's
think that's really
warm or
cool is
cold,
that,
you
There is
go.
something for everyone.
yeah, and
Exactly.
I think that the other thing that makes it great is, like, the image. You know, because, like, okay, black metal bands, you know, they wear the face paint and the leather and the spikes, and then the power metal bands. Originally, it was, okay. We go back to the '90s. You know, Stradivarius and Rhapsody and everybody wore leather pants, and they wore the button-up shirts. You know, that had, like, the lace and stuff on it,
Mm-hmm.
and then the death metal bands just, you know, looked like death metal bands. You know, just regular dudes. You know, some had long hair, some shaved their heads, goatees. You
Exactly.
know, yeah, I mean, just real basic, you know. So you look at the difference in all of that, and then you look at how it is now, and all of those genres, all of them have made a massive cultural impact on the whole planet. You know, it's like, you know, what kind of metal someone's into just by how they're dressed. You know,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah,
think that's pretty
that's
cool.
true.
I mean, and then sometimes, you know, some of us, okay, like myself and other dudes that listen to power metal and stuff, also like black metal, you know,
Yeah.
and death metal and thrash and all of that stuff, you know, just as into all those genres as well. But, you know, the power metal side, I tend to wave the flag for it a bit more. Yeah, yeah, you know, I'm very passionate about the heavy metal.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Me too. Fantastic. I'm swinging between the heavy metal and speed metal, power too, a little bit of death, early death metal are really cool. You know, and new classic music. It's amazing. It's very rich music, and you know, like you said before, you have so many directions about music. It's amazing. It's
Oh, absolutely. It's like, you know, it's interesting is that, like, looking back on my own musical journey I've had over the years and getting into different genres and bands within those genres. Death metal, when I was, you know, around 15, 16 years old, was when death metal really was like boom.
Yep.
You know, you had all those bands out of Tampa, Morbid Angel, Deicide, Death,
obituary.
yeah, Obituary. You had all those bands coming
Wayside.
out all at the same
Exactly.
time. Yeah, and then in Sweden you had Entombed and Dismember and Unleashed and Grave and Asphyx, and you had all this cool shit happening over in the European countries at the same time,
Yep.
and that was really cool because like to see that metal had become that extreme, you know, as especially as a teenager, it really affected me a lot because I was like, wow, this is crazy shit. You know, it's even crazier than thrash. You know, thrash had you know, and it had the fast bits and whatnot. But death metal was just full on in your face brutality. Um, but the thing that I noticed was the Swedish bands, the European bands. Um, I thought that they did a better job at it because they didn't forget an important thing, and that's melody. You know,
Well,
it's like
I saw some bands
Exactly.
here around North Carolina, so yeah,
mhm.
it's good. It's good. You can like yes, especially the new wave of thrash metal bands or like death metal bands. It's cool. It's still because you know it's still like you can like back to the 80s music. You know, it's
Yeah,
something there. It's something there. Yeah, but yeah, it's cool. It's cool. There is so many. I'm planning to go to come to West Virginia to see, especially Richmond and
mhm.
Virginia. So that is so cool. Like shows and gigs. Yeah, there is cool bands there. It's
Mhm.
really interesting. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I was gonna say it'd be really cool to see my area become
Yep.
active again musically because
Cool.
like there's not a whole lot here, you know, in this region. I mean, you know, there's myself, and then there's Zero King, and there's a band called Neon Black, and there's a band that my brother is in as well called Sunday's Child, and then my friend Johnny Compton, he has like a blues rock band called the Amo Steel Company. And then I've got a buddy, old punk buddy, Chris Hillen. He has a band called Woodsguard, and they promote themselves as anti-fascist black metal, and I'm like, "Mm,
I
okay.
was like, what? Excuse
I was like,
me?
I'm like, that's an interesting marketing tool, you know. I mean, he might disagree. I don't know,
hmm
you know. And I mean no offense by saying that. It's just I'd never seen somebody list themselves as anti-fascist black metal, you know.
That's a new for me too.
But
It's a new.
yeah, hey, you know,
Anti-fascist.
I'm just glad
Interesting.
that you know those artists are you know they're trying to do something you know around here because
So, so you're gonna have
we
some
used to have a
gigs, future
totally different
gigs, and
scene.
coming like you're gonna like play something in the future.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, Matthew Mills and I are actually we've been putting our brains together because I said, dude, I said I really want to play. I said I don't give a shit if I've got to go stand on a stage and play the backing tracks. I just want to go play.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
cool. Yep.
because I haven't played live. Oh shit, I haven't played live since I played at Bulligan's back in May. So
This year.
yeah, I'm definitely due to go out and play
You
some
mean
live
this year,
music. You
Jimmy,
know.
right?
Yeah,
Oh,
I have, and not only that, but the climate around here for playing live, there's not really very many places that you can. You know, at least not for what I do. You know,
right.
there's not. Um, Unfortunately, a lot of venues have closed down in the region, and you know, if the way I looked at it is, if I'm going to do something around here, then I've got to make it not only worth my while, but worth everyone else's while. You know, and you know, try to make sure that I can present what I'm doing in a way to where it's not boring. You
Right.
know,
hmm
yeah. I mean, when you're standing on a stage by yourself, you know, you are literally exposed to every element of everything going wrong. You
Exactly.
know,
I feel it.
and I've had it happen. You know, I played a show last year, and the monitors didn't work, so
Yeah.
you know,
I feel like
had to
here
work
now in
around
America,
that
yeah, in
technical
America
issue.
there is no like we need uh more work about the promotion because it's like we talked it last time. Like sometimes you go to some shows and you find yourself like surrounded by 10 to 20 persons. Like what? You know,
Hmm.
it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think what it is that there's we live in a time period where there's a lot of bands. All right, I love you, hon. I'll see you later this evening. Like I was saying, I think that we're in a time period where we have a lot of options to see bands play live, and there's just not enough money to go around to pick and you
Which
know
one
and
you
go
want
to
to
a
go?
whole
Yep.
performance. You
Mm.
know,
Yep.
yeah. And then sometimes you also have to, you run into the dilemma for like the story I told you. I went to see Blind Guardian, back in May.
Yeah,
I went to
this
see
man.
Blind
Yeah, this
Guardian,
year. Yeah.
right? And the same night that Blind Guardian was playing in Cleveland, Saxon and I think it was Saxon and Uriah Heep were playing in Columbus, and in Cincinnati, Heathen and Symphony X were playing.
Yep.
So
Mm.
The same
here's the
night.
other
Hmm.
problem that you run into is like you'll have, you know, all these killer bands that will literally book a show on the same night, sometimes in the same town,
Oh,
It's the
at a
same
different
and you
venue.
area,
don't,
like yeah,
yeah, you don't know
like
which
Yeah,
one to
yeah,
attend. Yeah.
yeah. So you run into that too. I think that's the other reason why sometimes you go to a show and there want to be 20 people, but you go right down the street and the place is packed.
back.
For the next band. So that's another issue that we've got is just
Yeah, I feel
you
like
know
the
a lot
people
of choices,
reorganize,
but
like they need
not
to
enough
work
money.
together. Yep.
Mm. Yeah, I think that would be smart, but at the same time, I also get it that like all that stuff's booked months in advance, you
Yep.
know,
That's right.
Mm.
and most venues don't even know for sure if they're going to have some of those bands playing at their venue or not until all the negotiations are finalized, to
Mm.
have to be able to even say, hey, so and so, this band is playing my venue.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, for sure, Matt and I, we're trying to put something together, and
Cool.
I'm not exactly sure when it's going to be yet. I know, because we talked about, should we wait, do it towards the end of this year, or should we do it early next year? And I think it's going to determine. It's all going to be in the end be determined by, what's feasible,
Yep.
and how soon we
Mm.
can do
So
it.
it's
I
gonna
think
be
that's
like
really.
locally, like West Virginia, or just over the states.
It's probably going to be in the state of Virginia,
Oh, okay.
or Maryland.
Very nice.
That's where I'm thinking, because like I've noticed whenever Matt books a show, he'll book more than one. He'll book a couple of them, and so it'll probably end up being like just a weekend of doing some, and then like I said earlier in the conversations, is that yeah, I'm working on getting a full lineup. Um, it's just getting the right people, you know.
Mhm.
Gonna be
There's some people I have approached and they say they're willing, but it just hasn't. A time to get together in the same room hasn't presented itself.
right.
you know.
Correct.
So that's been another thing. Um, just finding people that have the time. And I get it. This is a this is a difficult time period. I think for everybody.
For everybody.
Financially.
Hmm. Yes.
So so you run into, it's like, oh shit, I gotta work.
Exactly. You don't have to. You don't have to miss any hours.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Sure, dude.
All right.
No,
Let me know.
actually,
Anyway, so let me know if there is something here in North Carolina, Raleigh, Charlotte. So yeah, just let me know.
that'd be awesome. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, there is some places here in North Carolina. I can help with that. So I can work with you too. You never know.
that'd be cool, man.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's something that I definitely want to do, is eventually play those areas once. Well, once everything that's happened there has been fixed. Speaking of North Carolina,
Hmm.
actually a really good friend of mine, him and his family just lost all their stuff in that disaster that
Oh,
happened.
he's in
And
Asheville
it's
or
like,
Charlotte?
yeah, up in Asheville, yeah.
Asheville.
And yeah, I've got a few friends that lost a lot of things.
Oh wow.
One lost their house, the other one didn't, but still, just being knowing that that's going on right now, it's like that's another thing. It's like planning the right time to do shows.
Okay.
You know, planning the right time to do shows when there isn't the threat of some looming disaster. Whether it's political or war or pandemic or
Exactly. Something going
natural.
on.
It's like, yeah,
Always.
it's like trying to
There is
figure out.
always something going on.
Yeah, there is. There's
Yeah.
always something going on.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that's why you have to keep playing music.
Of course. Always.
Keep
Like
hoping for the best.
like
Yeah.
Jack Style say, always keeping the middle flame burning. You know.
Yeah, yeah, you do. You have to keep yourself going. You know,
Exactly. Move
you
on.
have
Yep.
to.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, you have to keep
Yep.
moving forward. It's very important to focus your energy into being creative. You
Exactly.
know, as
Correct.
much as you
Always.
can.
Always.
You know,
Always. I
and
do
like
have
you
one
guys.
question here.
Mhm.
And so I've been playing like more than 30 years now. So I feel like you do have some advices for the guitar players looking for their place in the music industry. So what 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 you can advise there?
Don't give up. That's really the big thing is don't give up and play what feels good, you know, to you. Because like there are there are individuals who will try to, you know, coerce you into, oh well, this is popular now, you should play this style.
Exactly.
If you don't want to play
Mm.
whatever that style is, then don't. You know, just, you know, be yourself. Don't give up, and, you know, learn how to to work your own home studio as much as you can, and, you know, make sure that you can sound good. You know, try to make your sound as strong as you can make it, because that's one thing I'm doing as I was learning. You know, I'm actually going to be going to school for it starting in January. You know, the whole audio engineering thing, just being able to
Cool.
know how to tweak and do all that stuff.
Cool.
You know, I was originally supposed to have started this month, but changed and said, no, let's start it in January because I just had too many things going on right now. So,
Right.
yeah, that's it. Just, you know, don't give up. Stay focused on what you love and what you do, you know, and do it as much as you can. And don't get beat down if you okay, don't let yourself get beat down if you put something out and it doesn't necessarily take off, you know, in the first day
Yeah.
or two. You know,
Right.
it's like
It
if
needs
a
patience,
song
yeah.
if a song gets, you know, minimal plays on your social media, then, you know, find a different way to promote it, or write something that, you know, is stronger. You know, that's really all you can do. I mean, it's funny how that, you know, that goes with music, is that, you know, you write something and you put all your, you know, your heart and soul into what you're doing, but not everybody's always going to get it.
Exactly.
You know?
Yes.
So don't let it get you, you know, get you down. If, you know, hey, if you get lucky and you get 2 million views in the first 16 hours of putting up something on YouTube, then
Cool.
hey, congrats. But if you put something up and it gets 50 views in 2 weeks, give it time.
It's
It can
okay.
always
Yeah.
come back
Keep
around
moving.
and
Yeah.
people will
Keep
start
doing.
watching.
Yeah.
Mm.
Right. Keep moving.
Yeah,
Don't stop.
don't give up.
Exactly.
You know,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah, and make sure that you know, keep your third eye open, as I say. You know, have that, use your intuition to know when you're dealing with a slime ball who's trying to rip you out of money. You
Right.
know, 'cause I had that happen to me, you know, a few years back. I had a dude from Italy um, who he basically tried to scam me and like a dozen other guitar players here in the States with these fake shows, fake tours, you know, and hey, you pay me this much money and, you know, I'll make sure you're booked for this, and this. And,
Uh,
you know, yeah. And the thing that made it worse was that it ended up being a dude who knew a good friend of mine and had toured with a friend of mine. And, you know, so I remember when that all came about and just being like, holy shit, this dude, it's cool that this, you know, this dude supposedly can offer this, but the way he did it was he created a fake name and all this shit. You know, oh yeah, I called him out. I totally called the guy out on it, and, you know, and I made a mockery of the guy, and of course he blocked me. There's that
oh
dude,
yeah. Sure.
yeah,
No
yeah, the
doubt.
dude's name was, yeah, the guy's name that did it was David Lasorda. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the dude who did it. And so, yeah, you got to watch out for people who
Exactly.
will try to promise you, oh, hey, you know, you pay me this much money and I'll make sure you're on this. And here's the thing, the way he did it, he made it look really, really tempting, because in this day and age, there are so many promoters that do the whole pay to play. And so I think that guy really knew that, hey, you know, to play on, some of these festivals and stuff, you have to pay some ridiculous amount of money. And I know that like the Ozfest thing, all those bands that played, that played on that thing, all paid some ridiculous amounts, like
So much.
30 or $50,000 or something like that, just to go on those tours.
Wow.
And so this dude would, ask for like a couple of grand, and so yeah, you got to watch out for shit like that.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, I was like about to ask you about this. So, do you have any uh, idea to go like playing overseas, Europe, Asia?
Yeah, yeah, I definitely would love to go and play every one of those places at some point in my lifetime. It's just a matter, like I said earlier, is getting a company that can back me,
Exactly.
because
Exactly.
I don't have I don't have the money to do it myself.
Oh, yeah.
I will say this: God bless Blaze Bailey. I mean, that man does everything. In all of his touring, it's him. He releases everything. He is a sole proprietor of everything he does, and I think that's great. It would be awesome if he could like give a tutorial, a class, to all of us musicians in the world of, hey, here's how to be your own record company, your own touring agent, and everything, your own promoter, and do it successfully and be able to make a living just doing that. And I'm like, he's really smart, and I think all of us are smart to a point, but it would be nice to have somebody that can take care of that aspect. So,
Right.
but yeah, I definitely want to play, all
Obviously.
the big festivals
Right.
and play all the, all those venues that all of my, icons have played.
Yeah, you deserve
Hammersmith,
that. Your music
in
deserves
London.
that for you. Yeah, for you.
And I'll be honest with you, actually, a lot of what I've written in the last few years, I wrote with the whole concept in mind of this is to be presented in front of a Vakken, Hellfest,
Something
download,
big. Yep.
type audience.
Yep.
Yeah, it's all the songs were written in that way to where there's sing-along riffs and stuff with people go whoa, that kind of thing. Yeah, so kind of like the soccer chants that you see it,
Exactly.
and hear at Iron Maiden shows and stuff, and Halloween.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, at some point, that's the goal, is to eventually get to that place. Yeah,
Right.
We hope so.
and I will at some point. It's
One
just going
day.
to take a while.
One day. Yeah. One
Yeah.
day. When I believe that if you walk in something, so you're gonna get it by the end of the day.
Yeah, and I've never lost sight of it. That's another thing too, is that like you can't lose sight of the goal, which
Right.
is to get to that point, that place, and you got to keep working at it, and you can't let yourself lose sight of it, especially in light of whatever your regular life is, and your regular job that you do to pay your rent and shit. You
Wow.
can't lose sight of what your passion says to do, as opposed to what society says you have to do to make a living.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Right. That's correct.
Totally, dudes.
All right, Jimmy.
Is there anything
So
else
it
you
was
got working
amazing
on?
today.
Thanks, dude.
Thank you for being with us today, Jimmy. It was
Yes, I'm
really
so
nice.
glad that
Yeah,
you accept our
it was
Thank you
great.
for
It was
having me, dude.
great. I feel like I hope
Yeah.
you enjoy it by the end.
Yeah, I love being able to do these types of things where I can just sit and talk about music with like-minded metalheads who
Yeah.
want to know a little more about what it is I'm doing, or what I'm listening to, and whatnot. I love it. It's fun.
Cool.
Yeah, I really love your music, Jimmy. It was a great discovery for me this year. I
Thank you.
like your stuff, but I think that you should probably work more on the promotional aspect of your music so that
Mhm.
your music reaches more people, because it really deserves to.
Well, thank you. Actually, that's something I am working on doing too. Trying
I hope
to
so.
be more active on social media, in the ways that I can. So,
Exactly.
we'll see what happens,
Yeah.
in the future. But I'm going to keep pushing. Like I mentioned, I'm going to be, shopping some stuff around to some labels in Europe. So we shall see what happens.
Yep.
We shall see.
Yep, Jimmy. So
Keep the metal
any
Thank you,
other
Jimmy.
thing? Thank you so much, Jimmy. Bye bye. Have a good day. Bye bye.
Much.
Later, dudes.
Goodbye.
See ya.